Hi, I'm Rebecca M. Zornow. I'm a book coach and author of It's Over or It's Eden, a science fiction novel. And today we're talking about author finances, specifically how much I made my first month as an indie author. We're also going to talk about what I did this month, what's coming up next for those of you who are thinking about becoming an independent author, getting a sense of what that calendar looks like and what one does when they get ready to publish a book or get ready to start a new book. So first we're going to start with what I did this past month, what I did in October of 2021. Well, I hosted a launch party. There's pictures here and here. And it was just a really great experience. I felt my community really supported me and got to sign a bunch of books, which was like a dream come true, and have an event. It happened. And I feel like that much better for it, both personally and as an author. So I was really glad to be able to host a launch party and book signing. I also started stocking my book in a local indie bookstore in my area. It's Over or It's Eden launched in September 21st of 2021. So really the book's just been alive and out there for about a month. I was on the radio to share about my book. I sent print copies to the Library of Congress. When I told my husband what I was doing that day, he said, like, I'm really proud of you. Just, those moments that you get to have when you are finally doing some of the writer things that are a bit more like, ooh, it's out there, it's real. Also kept up with my author blog, newsletter, social media, started getting some photos back from people who have read the book, even enjoyed the book, which is great. And it was pretty surreal just seeing these pictures of like my book in like other environments. I've seen a lot of copies of my book here in my house. So it's nice to see it elsewhere too. And then, like I said last video, I am shifting. This book still requires a lot of marketing and advertising attention, it being new, but I'm shifting to my next project. And so I was building character aesthetics and character descriptions. I use Nicole's character sheets. So with Conquer Books, we have a package called Build Your Story. And I steal stuff from Nicole when she puts it out for clients. I'm like, I'm going to use that too. And it's always really helpful. I decide the title for the book and I outline the book. So the book that I'm working on now, I actually had a draft in the past. And it was a really big, ambitious project with many like multiple point of view chapters and characters, and a big long timeline, and I feel like I'm ready to give it a go. So even though I have a draft, I wanted to incorporate just some new thoughts for the outline and kind of hone that structure a bit more than it had been. If you're interested in what I'm working on next, go to RebeccaMZornow.com. I do post on social media about what I'm working on, but most of my big updates go to my newsletter, especially things that are kind of like, oh, well, I'm still tinkering with this. Like, here's a character aesthetic mood board to give you a sense of what I'm working on, because that's people receive it in the moment and realize that I'm doing changes. When you post things on social media that maybe you might want to tailor right before publishing or, in any round of drafting and editing, I just don't want it to like be frozen in time on the time feed. So that's really what I've been doing this month. Finishing up things with It's Over or It's Eden, doing lots of book sales, getting it out there, talking with people about it, and then preparing for this next project of mine. So probably why you're here in this video is to talk about financials. And I think it's really important that we're open about finances. We're really not in American society, and I think that only does a disservice, especially to creative people who don't have a coworker and they can compare, financials. I think that the more we can talk about financials, the stronger we all become. And so starting this conversation, thinking about like how much I made my first month as an indie author. That seed started way back when I decided that I was going to publish this book on my own, and thinking about what sort of marketing strategy I wanted to do, what sort of process and distribution strategy. You know, the thing about being an indie author is there's so many options. Are you just going to publish an ebook? Are you going to do a print book? Are you going to do hardcover? Who do you expect to buy the book? What does your audience look like? Do you have that audience now? Or are you still discovering that audience and them you, etc.? And so really thinking through those questions. So though I think it's helpful when people put these tidbits of information out there, you also really want to think about how it can specifically apply to your situation and how your situation is really different. For me, I knew I wanted to go wide. My last video was about launching wide, and that just basically means that I wasn't going exclusive with something like Amazon. I wanted it to be in as many online platforms and bookstores as possible. And then I thought through who was going to be buying the book, how I would sell the most copies, and planning for marketing. And like for me and for my situation, having print copies was pretty essential, as you'll see in some of these financial things we're going to look at. So the book is up on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, everywhere for $15.99 in print, $5.99 in ebook. And I did that for a couple of reasons. And a lot of people will make their first book free if they're doing a series as independent authors, or they'll put their first book as like a 99-cent ebook. And I really think that we need to like value the time we invest in these projects. And I knew that I wouldn't be in the position, or because I also have other things in my life that I'm giving priority time to, I wasn't going to be putting out a book every 3 months. And so I wanted to honor the time and the investment I'm making in this book and charge what I feel like is a reasonable amount for a book. I also knew that I had some pretty die-hard fans, including my mom and my grandma, who were going to buy the book. But no, really, quite a group of people that are going to be really supportive. And I didn't feel like getting the 99-cent swing on Amazon and like hitting the algorithm was the lottery system that I was going to try out this time. So I'm going to put out a pie graph. I invested in It's Over or It's Eaten. I invested a total of $3,200. And now we can break that down. I have a lot of specifics because I'm very into organizing and keeping records. So 44% of that $3,000 went to copy editing, 31% to paperbacks, 14% to cover and book design, 8% to marketing, and that'll grow as time goes on, and 3% to publishing the actual book. And so like that's things like fees for the aggregator, getting a proof copy so that I could look it over, things like that. It's important to note, like, this is all really variable. And like for me in my personal situation, so my book coach, Nicole, did a developmental edit on the book, and we trade developmental edits in kind with each other. And then I did my own line edit because that's something that I'm very practiced with as a former magazine editor-in-chief and somebody who has been honing her fiction voice for quite some time now. And then I did my own formatting. So a lot of people will pay somebody to format the book, which is basically like deciding where your name's going to go, what's the spacing between lines, how much of a margin do you have in your gutter margin here, are you going to have little images at the beginning of the chapter, things like that, which sounds easy, but it's actually very complex for getting your ebook and making sure everything is going to work across all devices and be really professional looking. So developmental edit, line edit, and formatting were things that I either researched or I had experience in or I trade in kind, but that's not going to be the case for everyone. Another variable was, if you'll notice, I did 31% of my budget went to ordering paperbacks, which was pretty important. I knew I needed to have some on hand for bringing to local bookstores, bringing to book fairs, holding my book launch. It was absolutely essential that I had my paperbacks there to sell. And as an author, I get more of a royalty from books that I sell than, I just make money off the books that I hand sell to people, as opposed to the royalty that I get from something like selling on barnesandnoble.com. However, the difference with that is you can only hand sell so many books. So you never want to go crazy with ordering too many books, because you only have so much time in a day. And, if you're literally handing it to somebody and selling it, that takes a lot of your time. And so I knew that would be an important part of this book launch. But really where you're going to make money and save time is having some platform selling your book and then sending royalties your way. But for me, it was important that I had my print copies. And I also knew with the paper shortages and Ingram Spark is expecting a lot of shipping delays, and the book industry in general ahead of Christmas time is expecting a lot of shipping delays. And so what I did was I said to myself, if I spend this much on my print books, I will be paying this much per copy. But if I spend what I think I will sell over a year period, then I'll be paying a lower amount for the actual printing each book and then make a little bit extra money that way. So I have books in my library, and I expect to use them all year long with all the different events I do and things like that. So another point is, this amount, the $3,000, these costs are actually for the whole project. I know my headline is, first month as an indie author. But getting ready for the book, you're working on a large timeline. So I thought it would be most valuable for people if I summarized what this project investment has been so far. And I don't expect the amount to go up that much more unless I sell out of all my print books and I decide to buy more to sell, or, a certain ad or something like that. Yeah, so that's the investment. So for what I've made in literally the last month, what I've made since this book launched is I've made $908. And that breaks down to 66% came from my book launch. So remember, I talked about how important print was for my situation. Those were all books that people had ordered online, but then a good chunk of it was books that I sold at the launch. So 66% of my income came from the book launch. 17% was hand selling outside of the book launch. I had somebody at the book launch who was, selling so I could sign and things like that. But a few people who are in my community have just set up a time to meet with me and, bought a few copies and whatnot. 6% each from both Amazon and Ingram Spark. And then 5% from my local indie bookshop, which I feel really good about. So yeah, $900. And now that I have reviews, I did a review campaign through my social media and my newsletter, and I have a footprint. There's evidence when you Google the name, it shows up, and there's all these things that I've been working this last month to do to create visibility for It's Over or It's Eden. Now that I do that, I think in the coming months, I will be investing more time and a little bit more money into advertising. I feel excited to get into those. And then I also feel good about making back a third of my investment in the first month. So remember, with books, you potentially can be selling this for the rest of your lifetime, and your beneficiaries can be making money on your creative products for, I think it's 70 years past the date of the author's death. Which I think is a terrific gift that I'm giving to myself for the rest of my life, and potentially for my kids if it continues to sell. So I made back about a third of my investment in the first month, and I feel good that the rest of this next year is going to go well. It would be interesting to do a video sometime on how many books typically sell, what's a good amount of books, but that's another conversation. So to summarize, my strategy was really focusing on learning the process for this book. Actually, that's not a summary. We didn't talk about that yet. This is my debut science fiction novel, and though I have edited and coached people through lots of books, this was my first time me going through and for instance, the formatting. I had to learn that process, and just seeing how it felt for me and what my own decisions were. So this year, my focus was really on writing a good book, which I think I did, and producing a good quality book. And I think I did that too. There's always more that you can learn. And I think when people go into their first book with like, I'm going to be a great marketer, I'm going to have arcs, I'm going to have a street team, I'm going to, learn to do my own formatting, I'm going to design my own cover, do, all the things, I think you get overwhelmed and it just is a lot to take on. And so for me, knowing how I work, I knew that by picking these two big goals, that's something that would really lay a foundation. And so, focusing on the learning process this year was my big goal. And then also taking a wide and a long view. We just talked about that longevity that creative projects have, that books have, to be fueling your income throughout your lifetime. Alongside that, building a backlist is very important to me. You never know what novel is going to be your breakout novel, or, even when just one reader discovers you as an author. And, think about yourself as a reader. When you find an author that you're really excited about, what do? Once you finish that book, you see what else they've written. And so starting now and getting that backlist going is important, because I don't know, will it be my 5th novel? Will it be my 10th novel? Which one is going to like elevate me and have a bunch of people come, going back through my list and picking up something I had already written. And for me also, so another piece of this is, right, we talked about, what was that amount? $900 that I've made so far this month. That's going, it's not really going back. I was going to say that's going back to like pay for like my expenses, but I'm kind of working on a rolling basis with my finances, and I have like some good flow and whatnot. But if you were looking at it as a very black and white, like, oh, you invested $3,000, you made almost $1,000 in the first month, like you haven't yet paid out on your investment. That's not really how I look at things. And I also have other income from other writing projects, short stories, articles, from book coaching, definitely. And building those diverse income streams is important for my life as a book coach and as an author. So like I said at the beginning, we can look at these numbers and they're important and they mean something and they, teach us a bit, but also these financial journeys are all so individual and depend on so many different variables. If there's other questions that you have or topics that we should get into in future videos, definitely post down below and we can talk about those things. But hopefully this at least gives you a good starting sense. So, what's next for Rebecca M. Zornow? This next month, November of 2021, like I said, I'm going to be running online ads for my book. I've gotten started with Facebook already, getting some clicks over to the Amazon listing. But really, I'm going to be focusing on doing a lot of writing and editing. Like I said, I have an existing draft that I'm working with, but pretty revolutionary, like changing like some of the point of views and some of the storylines. So that means I'm going to be editing about 30,000 words and then drafting another 25,000 words over this next month. I have a few cover designers, book designers that I'm thinking about for the next book that I want to get in touch with, get a quote, get a feel for how they work and such. And then also keeping up with my author blog, newsletter, and social media. And then I write a short story and submit it somewhere every month. I have book coaching clients every month. So a lot of these things outside from like my actual like book fiction are on like a rolling basis. And I'm kind of weird because I want to pull this away, but I knew it would probably make a noise. And then also it's November, and I am a huge proponent and supporter of end of the year visioning and writing reports and writing business reports. So this month I have a couple of meetings set up with my business coach and with my financial coach in preparation so that in December I can look at my business plan, rewrite it for the next year. I am really into goals and being organized, and I think that for me, that works. And, it's about finding out what works for you as an indie author. Okay, that's the end of the note cards. I hope this was helpful. Bye.